Oops.
Hey, Logan, how are you? I heard you're in Virginia this week.
Oh, now who'd you hear that from?
My boss.
No, I had a good time at DCD and I'm doing well. I am headed to a friend of mine. I actually made a little bit of a trip out of this conference and I
Mhm.
drove up from Florida and headed to my buddy's house. I'm not too far away, but headed to my buddy's house in Greenville, South Carolina right now. So
Oh, very good.
I'm doing well though. I couldn't miss this, Alex. Couldn't miss this.
Appreciate it, man. How are you, John Michael?
Happened, man.
Greenville is a super fun town. I feel like there's street fairs and stuff every day.
Andrew, you are hard to hear.
Hmm. Is this any better?
Not really.
Hmm.
Hi folks.
Hey, Shruti.
Hey Alex. Actually I can drop the note too. Because looks like there is an automated reminder that goes out just before the meeting, which is still pointing everybody to the old go-to link.
Oh, for crying out loud.
Like I
How do we
just
fix
received
this?
that reminder.
Yeah, the automatic reminders from Tiffany we got one before you sent out your mail, Alex.
Oh, I don't get
Yeah.
those. I don't get an automatic reminder from Tiffany. How interesting.
Oh.
Or if it's yeah, because we're like signed up to the mailing list from the wiki or something. Yeah, I can't make any. I haven't dug into it.
Oh, we need to fix that. Because this is a small group, which makes me nervous that others are the go-to.
Yeah. So I just hopefully replied to spamming everyone and CCing you Alex. And pasting the correct link.
Thought we'd finally dealt with this after last month. Got a super long CC list, so I'll email the CC list as well. Hi, Mohan. Hi, Eric.
Hey.
So apparently, Mohan, there's still an automated message going out to those who signed up for the mailing list on the wiki that indicates the old go-to link. So
Yes.
I will have to work with Rob to get that fixed.
Yeah, that's right. The original calendar invite from Tiffany is still up there, and so if you subscribe, then it still pushes updates from that.
Did
So
not
we'll have some
realize that.
logistics in that.
Okay, we're 5 after, so why don't we start and hopefully others will join as we go. So we don't have a guest speaker this month. Thanks all for joining. We thought we'd use this meeting to debrief the summit last week, talk about some highlights and takeaways from the summit, Second, to review our work streams from 2023 and talk a little bit about where we want to go for 2024. And then some kind of action items that came out of the small sustainability meeting that happened at the summit. Some things for us to work on as a group. So maybe just to start, Mohan, if I could call on you just to give your takeaways and impressions from the summit at large, and then the industry initiatives panel that you participated in, and your reflections would be appreciated.
Yeah, so I think I participated. I think I was in the. Oh, Sammy is telling me call is not going through. Oh, this is, man.
Make sure he has the Zoom link.
Give me 1 second. Let me
Yeah,
tell you.
he's going to the GoToMeeting link.
I asked Sammy to go to the wiki page and then join from there. It's probably the best way to do this.
Does the wiki page have the new Zoom link on
Yeah,
it?
it has the Zoom link. Yeah. So I participated in the panel session, and that was so this was inside the show area, right? So I wasn't expecting the kind of attendance, and it was also like during daytime when other stuff was going on, and it was pretty impressive for a sustainability topic inside the show. I forget what it's called, in that area, to have the kind of audience that we had.
It was on the
And
exhibition stage, right?
Exhibition stage, yeah. Rob moderated it, and more than his questions, I think there was a lot of good engagement from the audience as well. And I thought he had good questions, and the questions kind of spanned from the sustainability of the data center itself, from a carbon footprint standpoint, all the way to the sustainability of the data center elements and the silicon and all the compute elements and so on. So I thought it was a very good interactive session for what is 20 minute session inside the show floor.
That's great. Any reflections from the others who were on that panel? Andrea, anything to share?
No, can you hear me better now?
Yes.
Oh, good. Yeah, I agree. I thought it went really well. He asked a lot of questions about measurement, and we talked a bit about making sure that we're not trying to always redo a different process, and looking at what the rest of the industry is doing and making sure that we're joining forces, or not reinventing the wheel all the time, because I think one of the things that's recognized too is that we need to move from just talking about how we measure things like emissions to making actions to reduce the impact of what we're doing. Yeah,
that's great. And then we'll get to this in a minute when we talk about our work streams, but it is apparent. So in that panel, there was there's OCP represented, Andrew representing iMasons, the new initiative in the Nordics. For some reason, I'm blanking on what it's called. Google and Microsoft. Anybody help me out?
You're thinking about
the net zero. Hey, go ahead.
Oh, yeah, I know what you're talking
Net zero
about.
data center.
Is it in the Nordics, or is that the one in Hungary? Sorry.
In any event, my point was that it's the same players in each venue, right? It's the same logos. And really, we're often circling around the same questions, one of which is metrics, one of which is standardization on how we measure embodied carbon, life cycle analysis process. And so I think it's good that we had that Net Zero Innovation Hub. Thank you very much. It's good that we had that conversation to start off the sustainability track at the summit. And it's a good thing for us to keep in mind as we think about how to scope our work for the coming year. We don't want to be doing the same work that another organization is doing, because it's just going to blunt the impact at the end of the year to have recommendations from 2 separate organizations. So it's good for us to think about what special sauce OCP brings to the table, which, right off the bat is an expertise in creating standards and creating specifications, obviously being open. And so thinking about how we bring that value to these efforts, try to work with these other organizations to create specs and standards that are going to be more universal and not competing with the work that others are doing.
And Eric, you had a panel too, right?
I did, yeah. I did the kind of the project status and overarching vision. Seemed like it was reasonably well attended and reasonably well received. We didn't get a lot of questions, but we didn't leave a lot of time for Q&A from the audience. A handful of them, but I think I was approached by multiple people after the panel session, the next coffee break. I ended up with a line of people to talk to from a bunch of different kind of parts of the ecosystem, right? And I think the kind of ambitious nature of it, right? The kind of the overarching, what is it that we want people to be able to do? It seemed like that was pretty welcome. I think we've got an opportunity to build momentum behind that if we wish, right?
And just maybe I wanted to add a few things while we were talking about, all the OCP sustainability track and outside the track. Couple of themes that I saw really represented there were outside of our workstream updates, there were more than one sessions related to metrics like PUE, etc. So there was some I think good focus on that. That is a topic of interest. Another thing was there were multiple sessions that referred to or spoke about circularity and recycle reuse. And then a third one that I saw that there were more than one sessions on that was like a TCO and carbon model kind of thing, or a total carbon cost of ownership kind of thing. I think Seagate, Solidigm, there were multiple sessions who focused on that theme also. So I think these were sort of in sustainability track outside our own workstream updates.
And Sammy, you did the workstream update for metrics, right?
Right. So I think there's a couple of things on that, right? It looks like at least the audience had a really lot of interest there. These are that they were all kind of eagerly standing and also they want to ask a lot of questions. What we are seeing is probably like there are additional items that we should consider. We talked about it. I think people are like to see their deltas covered as part of the overall formula, but we are representing out of the metrics. And also another thing is really like how do we want to operationalize? I think that is a question that we need to answer, because we can have formulas that we can represent a lot of good things, but if we are not able to operationalize, then it is not going to get deployed. I think there was a conversation with NVIDIA. We were thinking maybe a smaller set rather than the complete set, right? So we do need to have some discussion on how are we going to operationalize it. And also I think all of you were there, probably if you can add any additional things that you are cured other than.
I think it was well received, Sammy. I really like the fact that people are following along to the point where they're asking whether IUE will be subject to the same gaming type thing that PUE today could be, and how are you going to avoid that? I think there was somebody that either asked you or it was a follow-up after the presentation has concluded, and that kind of shows that people are, I'm sorry, I forget who it was who asked the question, but it shows people are really following along on the conversation.
Right, and thank you for Mohan, you and all the team here. I think a lot of discussion we had before. I think that was really helpful to get all the materials ready, and it was kind of good for having the readiness there.
Any other
Then
general observations? Go ahead.
No, Alex, I was just wondering if there are more or we want to go to the next item.
Yeah, I think we can talk about the next item. Mohan, if you want to take us through, remind folks what our work streams were in 2023 so that we can start to talk through what it is we want to do in the coming year, since we only have one meeting left before 2024.
Right. So let's see if this works. Does it work?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So when this was from July. So granted, not a whole lot of time, maybe about less than 5 months, right? So we originally planned for 4 work streams that I think 3 are underway. The other one, I don't know if it's really even kicked off at this point. Carbon modeling was Scott, and the goal here was to come up with a model through which there was an ability for folks to query what was the embodied carbon footprint of the platform, right? So because there are different carbon modeling tools and they all give you different things, but there's no easy way to go enumerate. And if you look at folks like IMEC, they essentially do analysis on the basis of public information on manufacturing, right? So they say, oh, this is a 10 nanometer node, 10 nanometer has got X amount of embodied carbon based on this paper that was published by Samsung, and therefore so I'm going to put this number in there, right? That's how much of carbon modeling is done today. So we were trying to get that to a place where we could do a real live API based querying model, and our lead left in the middle of the project, so Deb has taken over, and again it's clear that this is not going to be complete for, given that we have less than 6 weeks to get it done. Okay, I'm just going to go through the projects first, and then we can talk about where we are, unless you want to.
I just have one question on that. There was that white paper for the API and stuff, but did it ever get publicly released? Is that on the website somewhere?
It's available, but we haven't made a release. Anybody that wants to view it, it's available to all. What we're working through right now is our grading proposal. So one thing that we found that we needed to work through was all the different steps in manufacturing and how to get the carbon estimation for each step. And then we also would like to have, along with that carbon number, some metadata that describes how that number was derived. And then we wanted to put a simple grading system over that would sort of allow people who weren't expert to sort of understand some just so that they know something that's graded, just picking random numbers, 333 versus something that's graded 15. You probably don't want to do an apples to apples comparison there, right? Because the underlying data was calculated so differently. So that's what we're still working on. And I think, like Mohan said, we struggled from losing Scott. Scott had the software capabilities that we were going to use to do the software side of it. So we've paused there, but we're still doing a lot of work on the white paper and the concepts.
Great.
Helpful, yeah. Thanks.
The next project was sustainability metrics. Here, the goal was there were a lot of metrics, but this is but there was no profile that essentially says this is how you would use it, this is how you would do the reporting, the how-to guide on top of it, right? Most of the specs that were defined by Green Grid or ASHRAE were what is it, not so much how to use it. And so creating the profiles was one of the goals. And then creating an alternative for, as PUE, everybody PUE tends to one, where do we go next? That was the second. And then having done that work to align this work with, especially because PUE, WE, CUE come from Green Grid, align with them on this work. It was kind of a sub goal, if you will. It was not a main goal. I think in terms of creating these profiles and so on, Sammy, you're here, so you can expand on it. I don't think in the next 6 weeks we're gonna get the profiles work done. We may make progress on the PUV, but I don't think we're gonna get the rest of it done. IUV, we have a proposal.
Yeah, I agree with you. We won't get it done, but what I'm saying is probably by next year, right? We need to kind of early next year, we should really think on how we want to operationalize it. Right.
Right. So they deliver the IU proposal. I think it will get done. So that's probably a check. The delivering a profile, we need to develop our efforts, and we also need to make Rob an integral part of this work. So there is not any overlapped work between us and Priya's work on this one. So yeah, so it was great goals. Probably going to be 50% done in my mind, unless Sammy, you have a different rating.
I agree with you. I think there is fine tuning need to be done. I think that's what we want to focus more, right?
Yeah. All right. So then on the power telemetry, this was essentially creating the OCP power profiles and then delivering the telemetry knobs for sustainability. So on the power profiles, I believe John Leong and Jeff Roder worked on something to essentially make power, which is an optional attribute in Redfish, required from a sustainability standpoint. I have not confirmed that is a done and closed entity. I don't know if John's joined the call today. If he has closed that, then I think we have runway between now and end of this year to at least deliver the OCP power profiles. The sentence is incomplete. This is deliver OCP power profiles for sustainability. So I do believe that we can close that. The delivering the power telemetry knobs, again, this work stream took a while to get started. So even though this presentation I'm showing you is from July, I don't think this didn't start till like September. So it's lagging behind on telemetry knobs. So best case, it will get to 50% if you're grading this.
Ron, can you help me understand what those power profiles are, what that's going to look like as a deliverable?
Yeah, I've had the same question.
Yeah, so this will essentially go. So if you look at Redfish has how to expose power through outer band, but those are all called out as optional, even in the profiles that OCP has defined for it. Right? Redfish, first of all, doesn't say anything. OCP put in a bunch of profiles to say you must do these things, but most of the things that they did were, if you implement it, this is what you must do. Is what manageability of OCP did. But what the guidance, at least I had requested, was that Jeff and John go in and say, for sustainability, you must do these things, right? And you generate another profile and make it part of their manageability work stream and say, here is a OCP power profile for sustainability. And if you comply to this profile, you have no choice. You have to do these things. You have to expose power this way. The power has to be reported in this manner, outer band in this way, reported this way, in band. All the underlying infrastructure for how to do this already exists. It's just that we give too much power to the platform vendor in terms of should I do it or shouldn't I do it? And we're just taking that away by saying, no, you have to do it.
Okay. Thanks for that.
Right.
Mon, are we agreeing on the there's going to be a profile for sustainability?
That's what they were working on. What I don't remember is if they closed it. Either Jeff or John join, this is an easy conversation. Otherwise, I'll close and let you know. Like I said, best case we'll get to 50% here.
So-
And Danny, the workstream owner, is not here, so I'm kind of speaking for him in some sense.
So there was a discussion with, sorry, the profile in Redfish initially when the workstream started, and then the workstream paused a little bit and restarted again. Yeah, I did not see any closure on, what is exactly the power profile that's going to be used or going to be published. So, but
Yeah.
yeah,
Like I said, I believe John and Jeff have a very good understanding of what needs to be done. The question that I don't have a clear answer to is that if they have closed it in their own project, if you will. So I will take the AR to go check with them to see if it's closed. If not, we have 6 weeks to close, and that should be quite possible thing to do in the interest of, sustainability project accomplishing something here.
oh, I see what you're saying. So it's being pursued by them under their particular project.
Hardware management project. Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I see.
There is no sense in us essentially working on it when we can just give the requirements and they can go work on it and just deliver as a profile. Plus, they were part of our project. Both Jeff and John have been in this project since day one. I'm surprisingly they're not here. Usually they're here for every meeting.
Mohan, you mentioned
Yeah, I think there was a
power.
problem with.
Sorry, you mentioned power reporting in band. I wasn't aware of that. How does that work?
Pieces. It's called Pieces. You can.
How would I find out more about that?
I will send you a link, Deb.
And Mona, regarding the meeting, I think I normally go to the calendar and click on the things to come.
Mm-hmm.
Looks like calendar still says go to meeting.
I know. I know, Sammy. We just talked about it. This is still Stephanie's invite that's still there. We need to cancel all of it and redo it.
Yeah, maybe John and Jeff or anybody who is looking, they may not able to answer.
Oh, I see. No, John and Jeff are way too seasoned to give that as.
we did send out several notices that this is the link, so I think people should have migrated over here at this point.
Right.
Either way, I will follow up with OCP and with Rob after this to get it fixed.
Yeah.
And Mohan, I think in the update that we delivered at the Global Summit, right, there's one element, right, in the overall solution that doesn't live on any of these 3 projects yet, right? And I think it lands. So you talked about, PSIS, right? So a way to get a profile into the device, which devices you select and which interfaces must be supported by those devices so that we can get runtime monitoring of power. That's important. We also need to get to the vision we want, a way for software to associate the carbon intensity of the power. Now, that's not a power telemetry workstream item, right? It's outside of the scope of what we're doing here. It probably, if it belongs anywhere on this list, it belongs in carbon modeling.
Yes.
Right. Just like, we treated originally in the proposal, the discovery of the platform bomb and then the associated embodied carbon as 2 different things. I think the current profile actually has those combined, right? Where there's a set of metadata that will give you device identifier information. And then, like Deb said, also an associated carbon footprint with some data on how that was arrived at, right? Mm-hmm. The other thing we need is a way to discover operational carbon intensity, operational power carbon intensity.
Agreed. That in the metrics work group, I covered that in one of the sessions, Eric. That feeds into you having visibility into the power sources greenness in some sense, right? And there is a associated metric to go along with it, and we need to have a debate on it. So maybe Eric, at this point, there is nothing we can do about it, but maybe this is something we put it into the 24 goals and go work on it.
Hey, I have kind of a different idea. And, I think we've talked about this in the past, but, we've talked about nutrition labels, right?
Mhm.
And by having, by defining a definition, we can build, we could define something, let's say in XML or whatever, kind of like a tag or something. And this data point could be used as a digital twin, right? So then you could use these digital twins to model power consumption and kind of real-time conditions.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think you're right on, Bijan, and this is related to what I was going to mention next, which is that the iMasons organization through the Climate Accord is working on something, a project that started with this vision of a nutrition label. And I know iMasons was at the summit and kind of evangelizing for this idea. And I think there's enough overlap between what we're doing and the leadership of the two organizations feels there's enough overlap that we ought to be working together on this. And I think iMasons, discussed this with Shruti and Mohan, iMasons also recognizes that they have a capability gap. As an organization that's traditionally just been professional networking, they're now kind of getting into this zone of wanting to publish guidance, issue deliverables. And OCP, of course, has the experience and expertise on kind of developing that kind of standard. But to get back substantively to what you said, I think having a nutrition label that's backed by a standard that makes one data point comparable for one product to another absolutely sets us up to be able to feed that data into a digital twin for design, construction,
right,
and so on.
Yeah, and we would want to do that both on the embodied footprint, right? When you look up a device and you get an embodied footprint, that's kind of the nutrition label for that device, right? And that would be something that evolves, right, in terms of the maturity and the confidence in the methodology used and the values that are reported, right? Same thing here with operational energy, right? What's in a watt, right? What kind of power are we using right now in this location, right? Today, so one of the reasons I brought it up is, we could get started with, we want to be ready for that, right? And kind of plot a course to where the ecosystem needs to provide this dynamic nutrition information, whatever you want to call it, intensity of power, right? In the interim, right, what we would do in theory, what's available today is if you could discover where you landed, right, in what data center, in which region, there is a database out there, watt time, right, and others, right, databases of carbon intensity by where you landed, and it's only updated like once per year. It's not a dynamic.
No. Watt time updates hourly, I believe. And I think it might give a 24-hour prediction. There's a whole bunch here. I could do a presentation on this. We could talk about this.
Okay. Anyway, I think it belongs in the work group that you're in anyway, Deb. I think in that it's more that nature of a problem, right? So we'll give you a way in the hardware through the telemetry work group to get at what the power is. Now you got to figure out what do you want to associate for a footprint for that power.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah, in fact, I think we discussed, last week at TCEM call, right? When you're doing a planning, you need to have something like, I think we're calling as a nutrition information, right? We need to have some data that is available for the customers in a readable form. And that can be used for a planning phase, right? That's what I was calling as operations.
Yeah. So the way, I agree with everything that's being said. I just kind of want to say it a different way, maybe to help me make sense of it. But I think you could eat this elephant one bite at a time, but from two different directions. I think telemetry is important for collecting, real-time information, consumption information. But as Mohan pointed out, this is a long-term kind of, project to go and push these, kind of, I don't know what you call them, redfish profiles or whatever that we need to push all over the industry. But again, if we to kind of draw a parallel, our chiplet group, the ODSA group, they defined an XML, kind of description language called CDXML, and this has been adopted by JEDEC, by the way. So it's becoming an international standard. But it basically is a description of a component, right? So that you can use it as a digital twin, right? Eventually in your tools. So I think we have a model for kind of doing this in other domains that we could just borrow a lot of it and not have to create this from scratch, all of it, not a very heavy lift, just a bunch of little ones. But anyway, I just wanted to kind of say that I think that the telemetry aspect is a longer term proposition.
Deb, I don't know if I heard you volunteer to give a presentation on data sources in a subsequent OCP meeting.
So I did for the facilities group. I said in January I would give a presentation on the energy system and the utilities, just kind of like, obviously I'm not in that industry, but I've been studying it quite a bit. So, I could give a first level look so people start to understand the complexities around all of this.
And I think the information that, sorry, Alex, I'll let you
go ahead, Shruti, please.
No, I was actually going to comment that I think what Vision is saying that we have such a model available, probably we need to bring in that information into the work group that might work out with iMasons, etc. So that we are sure that while they are building, because they are thinking of building like standardized labeling, and it sounds like the XML that Vision is describing, that is in the ballpark of, sort of creating standardized labels. So yeah, we can, sort of connect where that sits or who has that information and connect them in the new work stream if it goes through. That would be great.
Yeah, that sounds good to me.
And then lastly, we had a workstream proposal for sustainable fluids. I don't think it quite got kicked off because I think we were still debating on whether it belongs in DCF or elsewhere. But other folks wanted us to do it because they wanted more of a sustainability view into what are the metrics for environmental safety. At this point, given that it didn't get started, there is no sense in grading it. But we should close on, is this belong in the sustainability project? And if so, are we going to do anything about it? At least in terms of driving a metrics there. Right. So that's the last work stream. And then while this was all in progress, we had the heat reuse proposed, and it makes sense for heat reuse. But again, heat reuse can go to data center facilities or it come to sustainability. So we'll have to figure out where the folks that are proposing it or want to land at Julius and Cosimo, where they would like to land it. If they want to land it in sustainability, of course, it makes a lot of sense to have that as a work stream.
Seems to me if there are folks in this group who want to work on cooling fluids, that it might find a natural home in the Cooling Environments Project. I don't know what you think.
So the cooling environment that you're mentioning also has a heat reuse, I guess, sub-project.
That was going to be my next question. Okay.
Yeah, they have a heat reuse project. That's right. Ralph has one going on. So this is where there is a number of places they can land. So at least as far as I'm concerned, it depends on where they think the right place is, as opposed to it needs to be here. I think this is it is one of the 5 tenets, right? So we would still have they need to follow whatever the tenets is when the specs they write. So we are okay if they want to do it somewhere else. But if they do want to do it here, then definitely we should be open to having a work stream to do that. And again, so far nothing has been done either in cooling facilities or of course in sustainability projects. So this is probably a 24 activity at this point.
Julius, any thoughts? Heat reuse?
I've talked to both parties, let's say, I'm open to both. I think DJ prefers it to be in the sustainability project. So that's fine with me. Like one thing I would like to get some guidance on, because I'm new to being an active participant in OCP, is like, what does it take to create a work stream, or what does it take to make a sub project? Would appreciate some step by step here.
I can send you a quick pointer, Julius. I think I have your email address. So I'll send you the link, and then so one of the reasons that we've not engaged with you is because you and Cosmo are still trying to figure out where you want to land. But if sustainability is where you want to land, I will send you the links, and then you can just do the just do what it says. That's it.
They will be great. I'll confirm again with DJ, and then let's launch it.
I will CC DJ in my email to you tonight.
Great, excellent, thank you.
Anything else on our projects discussion? I don't know, Logan, if you were trying to get into the discussion before we move on to our last agenda item.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, I've been a little hesitant. Can everybody hear me okay? I am on the road right now.
We can.
We can hear you.
Okay. Well, yeah, not really. I was curious of just a couple things, but they answered those questions. And I guess, I don't want to speak much again because I'm on the road here, so I'm just listening in. But I just want to commend everyone for fighting through the meeting link stuff, okay? And also really interesting quote out of DCD, Virginia. And again, I apologize, I was unable to get out to San Jose. I talked with Rob, Bijan, I was there in spirit. But, I think this is really interesting. Miranda Gardner, who's the director of the iMasons Climate Accord, had said that, we're trying to build this plane as we're flying it. So, anything I can do to help to bring in outside people that are not in this group yet, just let me know. But I did have most of my questions answered, Alex, but thanks for, tagging me in there.
All right, thanks, Logan. So Shruti, you pulled together a meeting of sustainability folks in San Jose. Maybe you could give us a debrief of that meeting, and then we could focus on the incubation committee criteria for sustainability and whether we need to update what we came up with at the end of 2022.
Sure. Let me just share my screen. So we sort of, a couple of us who were in person at the summit, we sort of had an hour-long discussion about some of the work that is either ongoing or that can be in the future for sustainability project under OCP. And so I've just tried to sort of put it down in a tabular fashion so that we can visualize some of the discussion. So there were a few focus areas that came up, and I'm sure the focus areas are not very surprising. I'll go one by one. Or actually, let me skip to the third and fourth and then come back. So the third and fourth is something that, we have a lot of active work already going, work streams already going in this area, which is, carbon data, and information exchange, which is the carbon modeling work stream, and sustainability metrics related work, which has the DCEM work stream and power telemetry work stream already going. There was a discussion about a few other areas that have either been active in the past or we might want to have some work in that section. So first one was around the LCA standardization. And previously there was an LCA guidelines white paper that was published right in the beginning when the sustainability project, I guess, came together. Some more discussion going around over here is, so one thing that Alex mentioned is we were looking to, have iMasons as partners, and they are sort of looking to develop a standardized labeling of, how the LCA is done, basically a standardized labeling of the carbon assessment. And when we had this discussion with iMasons, there was one concern, well, from my side also, that with iMasons and OCP, are we missing, some expertise, which is more on like running the LCA on IT equipment, that kind of expertise. So we were thinking if we sort of bring in other partners over here, whether it is IMEC or MIT labs, or maybe other LCA consultancies who can sort of partner and bring in that knowledge. Also, there was a discussion that, whether this is going to sort of spread out into 2 different work streams. So the iMasons are looking to create, the standardized labeling, but do we either in the same work stream or in a separate one, do we want to work on a spec for the PCR for IT equipment? So basically, standardizing what the PCR, what the product category rule is by which this particular LCA is run. And I know a couple of partners are interested in that side also. IMEC especially is interested in also standardizing that, although there is no concrete discussion or moving ahead yet. So yeah, this was one area where we discussed that maybe we need to sort of have something going or push some work in for the standardization of these LCA methodologies or the part. I'm just paused because I'll go to the second one. I don't really see any. Okay, yeah, I can see everybody's hand. Okay, so
no hands now. I think that's a clear description, and I certainly agree with and support everything you just said.
Okay, awesome. Then a second area where I think there was some interest raised was, so within circularity, previously there was a design for circularity guidelines published, and I know JM also worked quite a bit in this aspect within sustainability. Some questions that were sort of coming up is whether there is now a need to look at how the carbon accounting can happen with circularity, meaning how do you handle the carbon credit in case of reuse or recycle or some carbon capture endeavors, etc. So whether we need some work pushing that ahead now that reuse, etc. is starting off.
That's good that you met with Ari. The nonprofit that Ari and I are part of, Circular Drive Initiative, is actually working on this for storage, for memory and storage. So we actually are engaging some of the academics to do this study on like use extension versus reuse and what are the different carbon methodologies. So that could be something we can collaborate on. But yeah, I agree. I think it's unclear how to do that accounting, and there's 3 or 4 different ways you can do it. So yeah, happy to help.
By the way, it seems like yet another use case for a nutrition label type of thing.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, because that should also be included in the nutrition label, actually. That's true.
But it's difficult to put in a nutrition label because you're predicting the future sometimes, right? Is this going to be recycled? Is this going to have a second?
You could put in the label.
All you need is like the lifetime of it, right? You need like this, whatever carbon was captured at the time of manufacture, right? And then you evolve it through your models, right? As far as use, there's things you can query from it right now, like uptime and number of cycles and things like that. And so your tools could actually calculate what the lifetime carbon consumption's been.
JM, something to add to that?
Yeah, I think this is more of, there are perfectly good devices that are destroyed out of security, not because of like TCO. Then trying to put some accounting on there could help the issue for being able to, if you can reduce I don't know, and I think I talked to Eric about this, in Zane's keynote, he said something along the lines of, modularity and circularity can reduce embodied carbon by up to 30%. I suspect the math that they were doing was this: if you extend the use period or enable reuse because of circularity, then you reduce your embodied carbon per year. And so if you have a device that's rated for 7 years, but you end of life it at 4, and destroy it, well, then you should be penalized from take more carbon, right?
Hey, I don't know if you guys are aware, but we just kicked off a new program in security called OCP Safe. And OCP
very much want to learn more about. Yeah,
Yeah, this seems like a just to add on to OCP Safe, because this is the very thing that they're doing, right? They're taking firmware, they're creating, security audits so you could verify that it's been wiped or it's authentic or whatever. So it would just be yet a different type of test case, I guess, to define hard drives or drives in general, I guess you'd say. Or storage. I shouldn't say drives. I should say storage, because drives are a special case. Storage devices, and then so it wouldn't take a lot of work to extend it safe to drives, and then so you could have the circularity aspect of it, and you guys would have to come back and finish off the carbon accounting for it.
Yeah, my understanding is that at least the OCP NVMe SSD spec and SK Hynix was signed up to be part of that program. But I think, true to you, so I think, yes, we want to restart the circularity work group. Maybe maybe we don't meet as often, but I think in 2022 there was 2 major deliverables, the design for security guidelines and the data sanitization white paper. I think we should think about what we want to do for deliverables for 2024 and just put a few of them down. And yeah.
Hey, JM, can I ask, on your previous point, in terms of getting penalized for not using the full lifespan of a product, isn't your penalty just that you have to buy another product? You therefore have to put down in the books the embodied carbon of that next product?
Yeah, so there's a question right now. So that if a hyperscaler uses drives for 4 years and then shreds them all, they say, look, we recycled them all, there's no waste. But on an SSD that has 80 or 90% endurance left, that drive could be used, for another 4 or 5 years.
But then they have to buy all new drives, and they have to.
Yeah, the idea is that if you can either spread the embodied carbon over 8 years, and then if the hyperscaler actually sanitizes the drive and then does transfer of ownership, then maybe they can reduce some of the carbon on their books, right? So they can take a lower scope 3 because they've taken a lower per year embodied carbon instead of.
There has to be a way to differentiate that in the accounting from we shredded it and recycled the metal.
Yeah, I think that's exactly what Shruti's putting here, is that there is no standard of how to do that today.
Sorry,
Right.
Andrew, I didn't see your hand.
No, it's okay. I think that this feels like more of a carbon inventory issue rather than an embodied carbon issue, because embodied carbon, that carbon is spent, and the theory of the time value of carbon means that we should focus on reducing emissions right now rather than emissions in the future, and spreading embodied carbon, which has already been spent over a long period of time, disincentivizes that.
So yeah, so if you only use a device for a shorter amount of time, then your embodied carbon per year per unit of thing is higher, right? So yeah, it makes sense. They have to go buy new stuff, or somebody else in a downstream market has to go buy a new thing that requires new manufacturing and more embodied carbon versus using the other thing that has. So another way to do this is just to have a remanufactured or refurbished product that has basically no embodied carbon. It just has a use phase.
Oh, another way, maybe would it make sense to, if you assign, let's say, so much embodied carbon when you acquire the device, but then you remove it from the books whenever you transfer it, right? So you give yourself a carbon credit if you transfer it, if it's for circularity.
That's what at least my understanding is, that some of these hyperscalers are engaging in some of
That's what the hyperscalers do, exactly.
Yeah, they're trying to do these take back programs to basically figure out how to do that. But yeah, I agree. I think it would be a great thing.
Yeah, companies like IT Renew, that's how they exist. They essentially are taking from already used hardware. So the way they count it, Bijan, is that it's not going into a dump somewhere. Instead, it's being recycled and reused, and it extends the downstream scope 3, which is the hardest thing, by the way. Downstream scope 3 for every company is the hardest thing to deal with.
And just one small thing on, Andrea, what you were mentioning also, because you're saying that the embodied carbon is already spent. So one thing with that is, although that is already spent, it's like an upfront cost kind of thing, but its depreciated value sort of spans over whatever is the lifetime you can use the device for. So if I used a device for 8 years, that essentially means I am buying the new device little late which means I'm causing the manufacture of the device later, which means I am causing carbon emission by the next device to be pushed out and effectively reduced. So there is a cyclic process kind of thing that when I am able to spread out the spent embodied carbon over more number of years, how that effectively helps the total embodied carbon to come down.
And I guess the part that I just don't understand is like, that makes sense on a portfolio basis, but less so on a individual piece of equipment basis.
It's basically the transfer of ownership, right? Somebody spend it, you are saying like, how are you going to account it for, right?
No. Shruti is saying that because I used it for a longer time, I didn't buy anything else. I didn't buy a new one.
That's the key.
Therefore, I should get some credit for not using the new one. Right?
The credit you get
I
is
agree.
you don't have to put the embodied carbon of the second product on your books. You get to delay that longer. And so if you look at the next 30 years, you will have purchased storage fewer times. You'll have less embodied carbon. So you don't need an extra bonus credit for it. The credit you get is that you buy new equipment less frequently.
It's already shows up. Yeah, exactly. It already shows up in your cumulative embodied carbon.
Assuming you're not adding capacity, right?
Yeah, I would say it incentivizes the circular economy. And the other method where the refurbished product, remanufactured product doesn't have the embodied carbon, it only is for the first use, then it incentivizes somebody who wants to lower their scope 3 can buy recertified equipment.
Yeah.
And I understand. I get so nervous about pushing out the problems to future years, like instead of taking account for what's occurring right now, so.
Yeah, no, it's really bad. There's like 95+% of all the storage devices are just destroyed. It's really bad. Yeah.
So Shruti, we have 3 minutes left.
Yes. I think I'll quickly go over this last section, which had a discussion. And I know Ari is not on a call, but he also had a presentation at the summit on this very topic, which is essentially having more of a standardized sustainability metric to compare devices. So now I'm not really talking about like PUE or IUE kind of metric, but something like total carbon per unit performance. And what is the per unit performance depends upon what the device is. And then accordingly, how do you develop this framework for a total carbon cost of ownership, similar to a total cost of ownership kind of thing. So there was quite a bit discussion that maybe some standardizing and work would be good in this area also for all the different kinds of IT.
And next time I will add to our agenda or keep on our agenda a discussion of criteria for the incubation committee.
Yes.
Since we didn't get to that.
Yes, we didn't get to this one. So let's put it for next time. I'm sure it will be quite a bit of discussion too.
Any final comments?
One thing I don't see, I mean, would be nice from this group would be, how do we drive other OCP groups and projects to be more sustainable? To produce more sustainable work. And so I don't know what that is. I don't know if it's like checklists or guidelines or targets. I'm not sure what that is, but should be some sort of driving other projects to be more sustainable.
I think that's related to the agenda item we were just discussing. Yeah, Shruti, you're nodding. Yeah, so we set out criteria over a year ago now, or just about a year ago, for all projects that are coming through the incubation committee. And I think Shruti is anxious to update that to make it more prescriptive. Bijan seems to be what you're saying as well, so it'll be a good discussion for next time.
Yeah, and then one other open I had, Shruti, we talked about this just for a future agenda item. There are some other metrics that we may want to consider besides things like IUE for efficiency of the infrastructure, right? You talked about the carbon TCO kind of idea, right? What's the carbon per unit of performance, and could that be a metric that we build that you could track and try to improve over time, right? You should be able to tell modern from older infrastructure by that value. And then I met with some storage guys too, more than just Jam, right? And there's a proposal maybe that we should be pitching like a carbon footprint per unit of capacity per year, or something like the carbon footprint per terabyte per year, or something like that for storage capacity as something that could be generated and tracked and improved over time.
Yeah, so it might be, total carbon per unit performance, I would say, instead of capacity per unit time or something like that. We'll have to sort of figure out.
Yeah, right, and that's part of one of the points of tension, right? You can show SSDs are way more efficient per IOP if you need all the IOPs. They're not per capacity, right? And anyway, so more stuff that we could put on our bin list in terms of sustainability metrics.
Yeah, and also another one I think we discussed in the DCM, we need to have a modeling. How do we model it, right? Do you need to have a general modeling construct that we need to develop?
That would be Deb's work stream, right, Sammy? Or something else?
It's overall system level, right? If I'm going to have a system level, right?
Okay.
What is the efficiency? How are you going to model it? And carbon footprint, everything, right? As a system level, if you want to say it's a rack level or data center level, do we want to have a general modeling definition done? Some work groups should develop that.
I think maybe that belongs in your metrics work group, Sammy, right? So if you take a leaf out of the work that Ralph and team did, they didn't put in the absolute values. They just defined a overall abstract model and said you can put in any value you want. We're not making you give out your secrets. And maybe that's the right. So you just create an abstract model and say, here's what it will work in a hypothetical environment. Go work it out on the specific platform that you have. Right. Because we don't know every platform in the world and what they do.
Right.
Thanks. I know Alex got recognized for all the contributions for sustainability. So great work, Alex.
Yeah, congratulations, Alex. Yeah.
Great work, Alex. Thank you so much, James, for pointing that out.
What is this?
There's some email that went out for OCP.
Thank you very much.
Volunteer award.
I'm glad that you didn't. Yeah, now you know.
Yep.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks for the great participation. We will meet again next month.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.